Hey everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman back with you for the 235th count 235 Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call. We're engineered by the great Steve Caruso, co-hosted by Mike Hirsch and Myla Reson and Tatanka Bricka here with me in my office in Southern California, right here on the set. So it's great to be with everybody. We're starting with 49 folks, and at 2 p.m. Pacific time in Southern California, which is about to get really hot. And we have a ton, as we speak, by the way, Zelensky of Ukraine is in the Oval Office with the Trump and a few other right-wing journalists. That's all they went into the White House anymore is right-wing journalists. But they seem to be having a cordial conversation. They had a fist fight to begin, but that's calmed down now. I'm not kidding about that, but we have a lot to talk about Ukraine, and we have one of the great journalists in our country. We're going to talk in the second hour, starting at 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 o'clock Eastern, with David Saltman, who has a very, very long, distinguished career covering these major diplomatic events, including David, did you tell me that you were present when Gorbachev met Reagan? Did I understand that right? Dave Saltman, you with us there?
I don't think
Yes,
he's here yet.
Yeah, he's
I
here.
just no,
Oh, he's
I just
okay.
co-hosted them. So
All right, so he'll give us that, but we're going to start with that in an hour at 6 and deal with the whole question of what has gone on, what has happened here with Putin and Trump. Trump's behavior, obsequious, groveling behavior for in front of Putin in Alaska makes a lot of people wonder. I mean, does Putin have pictures of Trump with the young women way back when? And does Putin have the evidence? I'm sure this is true. Have the evidence of Jeffrey Epstein laundering the trillions of rubles that saved Trump from bankruptcy in the 80s? We now have a pretty good idea that that was a role that Jeffrey Epstein played for Donald Trump, was laundering money in a big, big way back then. And we're going to get to that in the second hour. I mean, Rhonda Rothfuss just says Putin definitely has Epstein dirt on him, on Trump and on Putin. It's pretty well known now that Putin and Epstein did know each other and were, shall we say, involved in one way or another. So we want to get to that in the second hour. The question is, did it define Donald Trump's groveling behavior in front of Putin in Alaska, that Putin is blackmailing him? We don't know. I did talk to Lev Parnas about that earlier today, and I'll tell you what he said at 6 o'clock. It was very interesting to me. We got Vinny DiStefano, one of the heroes of the struggle to free Julian Assange. And behind me, I've got Tatanka Bricka, been involved with the indigenous and Leonard Peltier all these years. So we're in good shape on those scores. We do want to start with our great Mimi German and her poem for the day. Then we're going to talk to America's mayor, Heidi Lambert from Waldport, Oregon. And we're going to talk with Diane Cameron about a major grassroots victory that we all need to emulate and talk a little bit also. It's a big deal, actually. Donald Trump at the thing in Alaska insisted on informing us. I thought this was astonishing. He informed us all that Putin doesn't like mail-in ballots. I mean, why would the President of the United States convey the opinion of a fascist dictator on mail-in voting? I mean, it's astounding to me. We also need to go to Texas today. Apparently, the Democrats have thrown in the towel on the gerrymandering in Texas, and we also need to talk about mail-in ballots. So we will see more on that. But let's go to Mimi German. Mimi, are you again in Rattlesnake Country, or are you back in Portland?
I'm not. I'm in Portland.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I was wondering because there seems to be a rattlesnake crawling across your wall there in the back, but don't let that alarm you. So let's hear your poem for the day, and then we're going to go to Waldport.
Okay, I wrote this poem this morning, and I'd like to say a little something about why. Because it is important to me as a peace activist. In 1987, I lived in Israel for over a year and speak the language, not super great, but speak Hebrew. And um, uh, I became part of Shalom Achshav, which is a peace movement, which was in its early days at that point in 1987. And 3 months after I arrived, the first full-on uprising occurred. And my teacher, my Hebrew teacher, who was also a peacenik, earlier, like 40 years earlier, was from New York. I asked him to take me out to the protests because there were small protests about the occupation. And so Dov and I joined a bunch of people who were from Shalom Achshav and some others to protest the occupation and free Gaza at that time. And now I've been following for a while a woman named Haviva Ner David. And she is one of the leaders of Standing Together, which is a peace group in Israel that combines the efforts for peace with Arab Israelis and anyone else who wants to come together. So Haviva has been out on the streets for over 2 years, making noise, getting people out, to the point where yesterday there were over 2 million people in the streets of Tel Aviv. The videos are incredible. The power of the people is definitely there. And listening to Haviva, who has her feet on the ground and Haviva has helped us, those of us who are not living in Israel, to understand that so many Israelis are against what their government is doing, much to the contrary of what activists in America and around the world, in fact, see, because they don't see this. So Haviva is she's a superhero of mine. And this morning in one of her posts, she used the line, passive pawns in their political plot. And I read that and I wrote a poem about that. So yeah, okay, passive pawns in their political plot. They think we will bed down in the grasses of the summer sun, drowsy from the weight of war, passive pawns in their political plot. But it is too hot to nap, and the Dead Sea is red with blood. We have crushed the bones of history into a stew of putrid slop, ladling it into the soup bowl of fear. But we will conquer the divide with love and the sword of doves against the long bow of hatred. Where once the vulture spread its talons, the hummingbird will hover over neroli blossoms as we repair the broken wings of sanity.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Thank you, Steve, for putting up these graphics here. You know, Netanyahu just continues to completely blow my mind, and I'm not going to go there. So at this point, but thank you. If you can bring her on or anyone else from that movement and an upcoming Zoom, that would be wonderful.
I'm going to try. Thanks,
Please
Laura.
do. Yeah. All right. Thank you. All right. We appreciate that. We got 80 folks with us, and Mayor Heidi of Waldport, America's mayor here. You're in your ongoing battle against the MAGA mob in the tiny town of Waldport. They tried to remove you and failed as mayor, so you're still the mayor of Waldport, Oregon. You're running a recall campaign or part of a recall campaign on these six whatevers. Can you give us the update?
Yeah, well, so first off, I want to just say that, we're all nonpartisan seats, so I can't say what political party that they represent.
Right.
But I know I myself is registered, progressive. And I just want to let you know that this podcast created a huge ruckus in my town last week because they found that I was doing these podcasts and they thought that they could prove that I'm the one that's behind these recalls. So I want to be clear,
Okay.
Sluggo, that this is when I say we and my community, I'm talking about my community like inclusively. But I'm actually not part of Justice of Waldport, and I'm not part of the recall, other than that I'm the mayor that was, unconstitutionally removed. So that's why, they're angry. People are angry at my council. But yeah, so
Are
last
they
week,
marching? Are they marching through Waldport with pitchforks and torches at night, or is
no,
that a
but they
different
can't.
city?
They canceled the city council meeting. They canceled the meeting. There was just an uproar last week. Last week they were trying to prove that they're always trying to prove I'm a problem. I'm the problem. And so somehow me being on your show was showing that I was just radical progressive person. Not that what happened to me as the mayor was what was radical. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So anyways, yeah, the council president, Greg Dunn, he thought he caught me. He thought he caught me being really bad by being on this podcast. And so I had to come out, and really say, like, first off, it's my First Amendment rights to be here. Second of all, we don't always agree. Not all of us all agree on everything in here. That's why it's so entertaining. And second of all,
Well, I disagree with what you just said, but go ahead.
well, yeah, fair, you know. But yeah, I just wanted to be really clear that I'm not recalling the council. That's my community. But I say we because I am part of my community. But it was very interesting that they're trying, and to be fair, it is in my right. I could recall them, but I think that it's good to be clear that actually there's many people in my community who are really upset and they're doing this all on their own. I'm just holding the space, of the obnoxiousness that they are willing to go to, the levels my council was willing to go to remove me. So,
Okay.
I'd like to add that if any of the council members are on here today, they can raise their hand and speak. That's what this show is about.
Yes.
sure.
Any of you counselors, I want to tell us why you want Mayor Heidi out of office. We're happy to hear what you got to say. I mean, we do have MAGA, we do have Republican, and we even have some Yankees fans on this thing. So, which for me is very difficult coming from Boston, but we do tolerate it. Okay, Mayor. So when will this recall vote occur?
Well, so right now they're still just working on getting signatures. And so they have to get 200 signatures. I believe I think it's 15% of the voters. It might be more than that. I'm correct. I'm not 100% sure, but they have to get so many percentage of the voters to sign that they want the recall. And then in the recall, they still get to put their name on the ballot. They still get to fight for their seat. Just because you're recalled doesn't mean you go away. It just means that you have to like really campaign for your seat.
And now in the recall, is it competitive or is it just yes or no to recall?
It's competitive. So people will run against the people being recalled. And then the people of my town will have a choice if they want to get the person who's being recalled back or if they want to go with somebody new.
Oh, okay. So it's not just you're off and then we have another election. It's
Yeah, no, it's not.
you have to sit and face someone who's trying to take your seat.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And so it just lets the voters reevaluate their original decisions. And also, some of my counselors have 4-year seats. So
Uh-huh.
maybe the first 2 years they weren't, problematic, but now they've become more problematic. So the voters might change their minds.
Interesting. All right. Well, listen, anybody on the call who wants to move to Waldport and run for city council, I don't know if is there a residence requirement? How long do you have to be there?
I think 6 months. But
Oh, okay.
Slugo, I think it's important. I think what you said is important. I think that right now is the time to sign up to run for elections. So if you haven't been on city council or if you haven't been on a planning commission, this is your turn. This is your turn now to go sign up and take those seats that are needed so badly by people like us.
Well, if I were to move there, I would run on a ticket of totally solarizing the town, maybe building a windmill offshore to power the communities. One of those things, Call it the
Oh
Donald
yeah.
the Donald Trump in your face windmill. That's what we call it.
We have wave energy here,
Oh
Sluggo.
yeah,
Lots of wave energy. So, and there's solar too. I mean, we can do solar, wind, and wave.
there you go. And geothermal. Okay. All right. Well, listen, thank you, Mayor Heidi. It's really great to have you with us, and we
Oh,
appreciate
I
that.
think,
Myla, you got your hand. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Myla.
I have a question. Are you already taking advantage of the potential for energy from the waves, the motion of the ocean, as I like to call it? Is
yeah,
that already
that
happening?
project is going on outside of Waldport on the Pacific coast. That is happening. And when I was, um, I have been involved in Department of Energy actually has these $1 million grants for small cities like ours to create emergency backup for emergencies. And so, Sluggo, I totally am on board with having a completely alternative powered town. I mean, I think that would be so cool. I think people would come from all over the world to see how we're doing it, and especially because we are so much of threat of losing power here because of tsunamis and just extreme weather. There's a lot to be explored there when it comes to alternative energies. I think that's really exciting.
Good for you. Good for you. I'm going to throw in a quick pop quiz here, and I don't think you'll be able to find it on the internet. In what movie does the term motion from the ocean occur?
I thought it occurred in my brain.
It did, but there's a movie. It's actually in a movie. If
Wow.
anybody wants to try and guess, I'll give you a free something. I don't know what, but a free tour to Capital University. But anyway,
It
there,
was also
motion
used
of
by
the
the
ocean.
B-52s, Harvey.
What's that?
It was used by the B-52s.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
The
all right.
rock
Well,
lobster.
I think, yeah, Vinny means the alternative band, not the
yeah.
weapons of
Yeah,
war.
not the weapons of mass destruction. Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right,
Well, a
right.
different type of weapon of mass destruction, an Oriole.
Well, there is a movie it's in. So after the next segment, I'll tell you what it is. Maybe somebody will guess it. Okay, listen, Vinny, can you stick with us for the hour? We want to get an update on Julian, but first we
Yes, I
want to
can.
Diane Cameron. And we're joined by Dave Solomon, by the way. Dave, I introduced you, and you're going to lead off the second hour when we get into Ukraine. But Diane Cameron, you want to tell us about a major victory. We always want to celebrate our victories. So tell us about this road you defeated, how you did it, why it's a good thing, and what's going to happen next.
Thank you,
And
Sluggo.
also tell us how you turned purple. I mean, you look like you're in the middle of Wicked here. What's the deal? Go ahead.
Yes, well, purple is my favorite color of the day, and
You must be a Scorpio.
I am not, but I am Sagittarius, but I love purple, and it's the color for today, it's the color of celebration because on July 29th this year, the Montgomery County, Maryland County Council voted 10-1 to remove a proposed highway from the master plan. The highway is called M83 or Mid-County Highway Extended. It would have taken out 100 acres of high-quality forest, biodiverse, what's called interior forest, and it would have damaged large portions of 6 public parks in Montgomery County, which is just immediately north of Washington, D.C. And as you all know, we need our forests and our parks now more than ever for climate resilience. And we need transit, not more highways. And so how we won this victory of permanently canceling this proposed 5-mile highway project is through decades of citizen organizing. And what we learned this past year is that when you have decades of organizing and you lay the groundwork step by step or block by block to blockade a bad project, it puts you in a position to take advantage of the political moment. And so what we had this for the past year, and Mike Hirsch has been supporting us and advising us all along, so Mike Hirsch knows this. We have a progressive county executive, Mark Elrich, and he's with us in this opposition to this ridiculous, stupid highway project. So we realized that for roughly 1 more year, 2 more years, we were going to have a favorable county executive, a favorable county council, and a favorable planning board. And we said, this is our moment. If we'll probably never see a window of opportunity like this again. And so we issued, on top of our pre-existing expert reports, we issued a new expert report called the Call to Action. And it was based on that, on this moment, and pushing with a large diverse coalition. We had transit groups, environmental groups. We reached out to labor unions. We had citizens all around the county saying, ditch this highway, cancel this highway, and promote transit. So I would say the number one, well, there's two, our formula is twofold. Number one, steadily build up your blockade and your brick by brick, build your blocks that are going to blockade a bad project and do the organizing. And then step 2 is recognize when you have that political moment, when you have allies in public office, then you've got to move and push as hard as you can in that moment. And that's how we won.
So the road is defeated. Do you have an alternative in place to do the kind of commuting they were talking about, or was it just some scam from road builders anyway?
All right, Sluggo, could you clarify? Are you asking like what are the transit alternatives?
Yes. Yeah. What are the alternatives? And I have an ulterior motive that I'm going to lead into on inevitably nuclear power. But go ahead.
The name of our coalition is Transit Alternatives to Mid-County Highway Extended. So we're the TAME coalition, and we are promoting greater use of our existing bus system. Montgomery County, Maryland has one of the top 5 largest municipal bus systems in the country. It's called Ride On, and it serves rural and urban communities in a very large county. Our county is 1.1 million population, so we're promoting greater use of our bus system. And as of this summer, our county council made the bus system free for all. And we also have bus rapid transit that our county executive is promoting as a new additional transit system that we are in favor of. And we also have a commuter train. We have state of Maryland has a commuter train, and we also have the Washington, D.C. Metro subway system that serves our county. So we have actually 4 transit systems.
Well, good for you. I've been on that metro system. It's really cool. I've also taken the train from D.C. up through your county to northern places. So, Mike Hirsch, you want to jump in with this?
Yeah, great presentation, Diane, and an absolutely amazing job by TAME and all the people that you worked with. And thank you for providing such a great example of how people can unite against a terrible project. I just wanted you to comment on your connection with US PIRG and if you're aware of any other efforts like this around the country.
Yes, thanks, Mike. Yes, I really want to thank US PIRG, Public Interest Research Group. and their analysts are in Frontier Group, and they have put out 7 editions of a report they call Highway Boondoggles. And so a few years ago, we reached out to them, and they included this M83 highway in Maryland as an example of a highway boondoggle. And so they gave us a lot of support, awareness on the national level. And also I wanted to point out that in both Denver and Los Angeles in the past roughly 10 years, similar highway projects that were fought, that were the subject of citizen battles for a really long time, have been canceled as well. So I think there's a trend, and I think we want to push this trend.
Yeah, you had your own song, as I recall, was Highway to Hell, right? What was the group? What group did that? That was after my time, but I remember somebody yelling Highway to
That's
Hell.
AC/DC from
All
from
right,
us
It,
from
too young for
Australia.
me.
well, while I still have the floor, Sluggo,
Yeah.
I wanted to make one final comment, which is that I've been an environmental activist for my entire life, and this is one of the biggest victories I've ever experienced, and one of the only other big victory that I can compare this to is in the late 70s and early 80s, when I was part of the effort to cancel the Marble Hill nuke in
Oh,
southern
yeah.
Indiana. And so it just feels really good, and I knew you would relate to
Of
that
course.
comparison.
Well, for you sports fans who are interested, I once got into the locker room at Richland Coliseum, south of Cleveland, and I watched the Celtics play the Cavs. And afterwards, I interviewed Larry Bird. It was more like I was just talking to him for about a half hour, and he knew all about Marble Hill. Do you know who Larry Bird is?
Of
He lived right. He's the hick from French Lick, and he lived right around the corner from Marble Hill. He said he knew a bunch of guys who worked there.
Wow, of course I know who Larry Bird is. I did not know that he talked with you, Sluggo, about Marble Hill, and yeah.
Well, if I'd had my wits about me, I would have organized them and signed them up for no nukes, but I missed that opportunity. But it's great to have victories. And speaking of which, I'm going to make the inevitable segue to nukes and the energy. We have on the call Karl Grossman, the great anti-nuclear activist and journalist from Long Island. And Karl, you helped defeat the Shoreham reactor. Karl, you with us there? And I hope he's still with us. One of the things we learned in fighting nuclear power, as you well know, Diane, is that you have to have an alternative. There's Karl. If you want to unmute, I'm going to try to unmute you, Karl. If When we first started fighting the nuclear plants in Western Massachusetts, people would say, "Well, if you don't want the nukes, what do you do for energy?" And we said, well, wind and solar. We had no idea what we were talking about. And, nobody, it was not, it was in its infancy, that industry. But we did have a gathering in 1975 in Amherst, Massachusetts at UMass, which was attended by the great Amy Lovins. And at that gathering, we, in the abstract, started the first discussions of going to Solartopia, of going 100% renewable. And the bottom line is that industry has become, not only did we shut down a lot of nuclear plants, thank God, but the industry that we gave birth to is one of the biggest industries in the history of the world, and one of the most successful, wind and solar. And so here we are. In fact, more than 90% of the new electrical generating facilities on this earth today are wind and solar coming out of nowhere. And I actually asked Amory a few months ago if back in 1975, could he have predicted how powerful and profitable renewable energy would become? And he said, no way. I mean, it's really one of the great technological miracles of human history is the incredibly rapid and effective spread of renewable energy, and to the point where in California, almost every day, at least part of the day, we have 100% renewable energy. And in West Texas at night, because of the powerful wind, electricity is, as they say, too cheap to meter. So thank you, Diane, for both your no nukes work and for this victory on over the highway to hell. And since you've revealed that AC/DC was the band, the movie in which the term motion of the ocean occurs is Hairspray. I don't know if anybody you remember that song where what's her name, the lead actress is dancing, but they use the term motion from the ocean. So there you go. Also, Hairspray was John Travolta's only truly great movie performance. I don't know if you remember that. Carl, you on Long Island, you stopped the Shoreham reactor, and I'm sure in the middle of it, everybody told you that if you didn't have the nuclear power plant, you would freeze in the dark. Has that in fact happened?
Not at all. And it wasn't just Shoreham 1, that was the name. All the licensing material, it was Shoreham Nuclear Power Station 1. There was to be Shoreham 2 and Shoreham 3. And then about 40 miles east along the Long Island Sound, Jamesport 1 and Jamesport 2. There were to be 11 nuclear power plants on Long Island. And Shoreham was the first, and it was completely constructed, stopped, however, from going into commercial operation.
No, now they use it for a handball court now, right?
No, there were all these dire warnings about without nuclear power, Long Island couldn't make it. But here we are, decades later, and things are fine. Other than with Trump, you have a huge effort to stop offshore wind, because Long Island is well suited for offshore wind. I've been at the wind farm off Block Island. There's 5 turbines there, and the idea was to have lots of turbines, because the continental shelf is pretty shallow, and you can put up a lot of wind turbines south of Long Island and east of Long Island. And that's been going forward until Trump,
right,
who hates wind turbines. He's also very much against solar. So the solar credit of 30% is going to end at the end of this year. So we're still it's not over yet, that's for sure.
No.
We have a federal administration crazy for nuclear. And in New York State, we have a governor, Hochul, who would like to see New York State become the capital of a new nuclear renaissance. So the struggle continues.
I taught Western Civ in history, and I don't remember. The nuclear industry has had, what, 6 or 7 renaissances? How many dark ages is that? So we've got 90 people with us, Carl, and I think that what's going to happen, I'll just tell you, I signed up my house here in LA to go solar. And I signed the contract. And then Newsom, because he's been killing solar in California, drove the company into bankruptcy. And they came back to me 6 months later, and you know what? The price of the solar panels had dropped more than 10%. So what's going to happen is they're going to hold off. Oh, and I have a picture. Steve, I just put out a piece. Steve Caruso just posted a piece for me at freepress.org on the demise of nukes here. If you can show it for a minute, and we can put the link in the chat. But what's going to happen? They can't kill renewable energy. All they can do is postpone it. So when Trump is gone, hopefully next week, the wind industry will come back, and the windmills will be 25% bigger and 50% cheaper and more effective. That's all that's going to happen. There you go. A great graphic, Steve, too, by the way. This is Steve's good work at freepress.org. Carl, if you can, send it to your various guys, put your name on it and put it up with Daily Kos or whatever. But the bottom line is that Trump thinks there's the old adage, he who laughs, from Bertolt Brecht, he who laughs has not yet heard the bad news. But they say they're killing wind and solar. They can't kill wind and solar. All that's going to happen is it's going to come back further down the road, 25, 50% more efficient and 25 or 50% cheaper. So 20 years from now, Long Island will have a tremendous array of windmills up and down, the shore. And because of Trump, they'll just be bigger and more efficient. That's all. He'll postpone it. But, these guys, the reason behind this, and I'll get to Myla and then Steve, the reason they're pushing away solar and wind is because the guys who are supporting, the men and women, the billionaires supporting Trump, all have investments in coal, oil, nukes, and gas. They've got inventory. They got to move this inventory, and they can't move it once the solar and wind come in. So they're pushing solar and wind back as far as they can. But sooner or later, hopefully they don't destroy the planet in the meantime. That's the big gamble. But sooner or later, they're gonna their fire sale will be over, and you'll see windmills up and down Long Island and everywhere else. I mean, it's just, I hate to use the term inevitable, but the economics are so compelling for renewables that they're not, they can slow us down, but they can't stop us. That's the bottom line. That's my feeling, and I don't think I'm wrong. I won't even say that I could be wrong about that. Okay, Myla, go ahead, Myla.
So I have a question for you, Carl. I don't know if you've been following it, but Nepo baby Andrew Cuomo, who is running to be the next mayor of New York City, has been referring to his father, Mario Cuomo, a bit, trying to kind of have some of the prestige of his father rub off on him to convince new people who live in the city to vote for him as mayor. I'm curious to know if you can tell us a little bit about, I believe Mario Cuomo was governor at the time that you stopped Shoreham. And is that correct? Yep. And I'm just wondering if you could just remind us a little bit about how the interaction between Mario Cuomo and the people who were working to shut Shoreham went.
Well, Mario Cuomo was a great support. And actually, I was kind of in the middle of this. I was the anchor person at WSNL TV at the Long Island commercial station at the time. And it just shows you how nuclear is, beyond everything else, an educational issue. And he was running for governor, and he came to the station to be interviewed. And I interviewed him. And at one point, he was talking about jobs and stuff. And then after the interview was done, and we closed the news report for the night, I asked him to hang on for a bit, if he would. I sat down with him, and I had just written a book called Cover Up: What You're Not Supposed to Know About Nuclear Power. And instead of kind of doing a narrative, people would say, well, you're a journalist, it's your opinion. What I do in this book, which is actually accessible for free, just go to my website, karlgrossman.com, go to books, there's a little button, books, and you can download the whole book for free. Cover Up: What You're Not Supposed to Know About Nuclear Power. And what I do in the book is to, as facsimiles, take documents from the government, from industry. For example, the book starts page 2 with the nuclear clause of everybody's homeowner's insurance in the United States, saying this policy doesn't cover loss or damage and so forth of radiation. I mean, if it's so safe, nuclear, why is there a nuclear clause in everybody's homeowner's insurance?
Well, Carl, I got to ask you, when you sat down with Mario Cuomo to discuss this issue, did the two of you light up a joint?
No, it was.
Oh, okay. Just checking. I just wanted to see.
It was just outside the TV studio where I was doing the news. Yeah, there's the book. You just can click on it right there to download. Just click on Cover Up. It's useful. It's been used for years now. I mean, it was published in 1980 because I used these incriminating documents. For example,
So you convinced Mario Cuomo to help shut the Shoreham nuclear plant. Is that right?
well, I sat with him and he knew my work because he was based in Queens, New York. And I originally was at a newspaper, the Long Island Press, based where he's from, in Jamaica, New York. So he knew my writing. And just flip that page. You could go right down. You can see for Paul Jacobs, I dedicated the book.
Yeah. So
And that's the preface to the latest edition. Paul Jacobs, of course, Paul Jacobs and the Nuclear Gang is one of the great video
he was a great
documentaries on
activist.
nuclear, and
So
he loses his life on that story because he walked into a hotspot in Nevada and so forth. In any case, with Mario Cuomo, he's going through the book as I'm sitting there next to him, and that was it. Mario Cuomo was then an opponent of nuclear power, and one of the arguments in terms of nuclear on Long Island. See, Long Island was eyed as in the jargon of the promoters of that time, a nuclear park. There'd be 7 to 11 nuclear power plants. And one of the arguments is that here's this 120-mile Long Island in the ocean. The connection to the mainland is a couple of tunnels and some bridges. You couldn't evacuate 8 million people from Long Island in the event of a nuclear plant accident. That was a big argument. And then punctuating that argument came the 3 Mile Island disaster, Chernobyl. And this is before Fukushima yet.
right.
And that was the end of nuclear power on Long Island. And then meanwhile, what the stress was alternatives, solar and wind and geothermal, and that got going. Now it's cheaper than it's ever been, solar and wind, more efficient than it's ever been. And in my little house, I live on that map you're showing, I live in Sag Harbor, which is just go below Jamesport. You'll see East Hampton, just a little west of.
Oh yeah, right there.
Yeah, and it's the same latitude as Madrid. It's a sunny place, and I have 38 solar panels on the roof of my 125-year-old salt box house. The meter runs backwards all the time because I'm feeding electricity back into the grid. It's solar is here now. It works. It's a fraction of what it costs. In cover up, I get into solar, but efficiencies then were not so good. The price was high. Now people can afford solar, and compared to their utility bills, particularly for nuclear utilities, it's a fraction.
Now we've got this ridiculous governor, and in Michigan in New York and in Michigan, they're talking about reviving a nuclear plant. These people are out of their minds. So take a look at my piece, Carl, if you can, and send it around if you want to. Myla, are you finished, or did you want to go? Go ahead.
I have another question. It appears that Mario Cuomo didn't teach his Nepo baby, Andrew Cuomo, well.
But Andrew did decide to shut Indian Point.
Yeah,
he did do that. He did
decide to shut Indian Port, but what he arranged too at the same time was a $7.6 billion bailout of a bunch of nuclear power plants upstate New York.
That's right.
And we in New York, everybody's bills, consumer bills, nonprofit.
But did you know, Carl? Last week, Zoran Mondani dropped an ad, and he exposed the fact that Andrew Cuomo has close to $3 million investment in a $1.45 billion company called Nano-Nuclear. And Nano-Nuclear is looking to put those so-called small modular reactors all over New York and other places, as well as the moon.
Mm.
God,
And
these people are nuts.
we thank you, Andrew, for helping to shut.
Well, and along the same lines,
Go
yesterday,
ahead.
Myla and I met what we think may be the future governor of California. And we talked to her about nuclear, right? Katie Porter, who's running.
That's right. And she has a little bit more to learn.
She has a lot to learn. The one thing I wish I'd said to her is, you do not want to be governor of California when Diablo Canyon blows up.
That's right.
You know, I mean, are you going to evacuate your kids, or are you going to stay and be the governor? But you know, hopefully we'll get another chance. We did open up, thanks to Milo. We did open up with. So we'll have covered a dialogue with Katie Porter, and she does seem very gubernatorial. So we'll see, and Carl, and as with you and Mario Cuomo, we did not light up a joint, although it certainly would have been appropriate at the party we were at. So nonetheless, Milo, do you want? Should we go to Steve Caruso here?
For sure. Yeah.
Steve, go for it. Steve
Thank
Caruso.
you.
This is great, Carl. Great to have you with us.
I watched an hour and a half video with Philip Ittner, who calls into Tom Hartman regularly weekly, who's in Kiev. And he had on a nuclear expert from Russia who moved to Donetsk. He's originally Ukrainian, or, you know, post facto, however you want to look at it. And he's saying that Russia controls 25% of the world's uranium resources. This is like the Katie bar the door moment. You know, here we are with Russia. Russia's controlling all the uranium. The U.S. is still and currently buying uranium from Russia. Okay, are there sanctions on that? I haven't heard of any sanctions on Russia. Have you? So I'll share the link again in the chat. And if you have the time, he's very concise. This guy's a scientist. He knows what he's talking about. He knows how Russia's dealing with things. So check it out. Thanks.
Right. Well, as Myla, Vina Colley from Southern Ohio has pointed out, the enriched uranium, the HALEU uranium that they want to use for small reactors, allegedly, is all Russian. It's a totally Russian industry.
But it's also stronger too. It's not your regular uranium. It's harder.
Right.
So if it's released, it's going to cause just as well, who knows? You know, I mean, talk to the scientists how much damage that can do as compared to the other plants.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me mention in terms of Russia, I still am deep in television. For the last 34 years, I've been hosting Enviro Close-Up with Karl Grossman, which is distributed by Free Speech TV out of Denver, and it's run on 200 cable systems in 40 states, on the satellite TV networks and so forth. My guest on my current show, and just go to envirovideo.com and you can watch it. You don't have to just be in a city with Free Speech TV presenting shows. Just go to Enviro Video. And my current show is with Dr. Alexei Yablokov, and he was environmental advisor to Gorbachev and Yeltsin. And he read my stuff through the years. That's a nice part of the internet. You can reach people in Russia, or you used to be able to reach people in Russia. And he invited me to Russia multiple times, where I gave talks on nuclear issues, mostly nuclear issues. And this is an interview I did with Dr. Yablokov before he passed away, where he talks about health of the environment and how when animals are in trouble, when trees are in trouble, when fish are in trouble, people will be in trouble. If the health of life in general is being compromised, people will be victims as well. And then he says, I ask him in the show, what is the biggest threat to human health? And he speaks about nuclear. He's been a giant.
Right. And he and his brother and another scientist collated all the studies after Chernobyl and came to the conclusion that as of now, when they finished, they said 985,000 people had been killed by Chernobyl,
By the fallout. They
by
straight
the
expressed
fallout.
where there
And
had been
certainly,
fallout, and they looked at the death statistics, and the book was published by the New York Academy of Sciences.
right.
The
You still
claim,
have
which
people,
continues over and over again about nuclear, it's safe, and
yeah,
well,
what a
maybe a
crime.
few people were killed as a result of the Chernobyl accident. No, Dr. Yablokov showed hundreds of thousands. This was 1984. I mean, the deaths have continued.
Right.
In
So
any
the
case,
estimate now,
check
you
out that
still,
program with Dr. Yablokov. I think it would be instructive.
yes, please. And you still have people from the industry running around and saying, oh, 30 people were killed at Chernobyl. The number is over 1 million.
Yep.
More than 1 million people were killed by the fallout from Chernobyl. So definitely watch that interview with Carl. Very much worth it. And thank you for that. We have David Solomon going to join us in a few minutes to talk about Ukraine and what's just happened in Alaska. And as we speak now at the White House, a lot to talk about there. I do want to check in. And thank you again, Carl, for being with us. And thank you for confirming that even though the Shoreham nuclear plant wasn't built, you're not freezing in the dark in Long Island. We're very gratified to hear that. Someone else who's not freezing in the dark is Julian Assange, and I have with me also Tatanka Bricca, who worked with Leonard Peltier. Vinny DiStefano, can you give us an update on that's not Julian Assange behind
No,
you?
that's not Julian Assange. That's much
So,
too
but
kosher for him.
tell me, we got 86 people with us. What's the latest from Julian Assange? Is he out on the beach with his family?
He's out on the beach. He's recuperating. He did lead a protest of about 300,000 people over the situation in Gaza across the bridge in Sydney. Now, he lives quite a far away from there in Adelaide. I believe it's several hundred miles from there. So he's traveling. Coming up September 18th in Chicago. Please forgive me if I don't have the exact name for this, but there will be, for all intents and purposes, the Julian Assange Journalism Award issued, and it will be given to Julian in absentia because he's not coming to the United States. But Gabriel, his brother, will be there. I'll be there, along with a host of people who were part and parcel of lobbying and using the airwaves to secure his freedom. The next step is a pardon. It's still a long way off with everything else. Gaza and Ukraine and all the shenanigans of the Trump administration are probably gobbling up all the oxygen on that. But we will push for a full and complete pardon, because the way he was eventually released still leaves journalism dreadfully unprotected. But I'm happy to report he's doing very, very well. His family and he and his two boys and his wife are digging the scene with a gangsterling.
Well, there you go. So he was in for 15 years, I believe, right?
Yeah. I mean, between the time that he was in the Ecuadorian embassy, and for the listeners that aren't familiar with it, you think of an embassy with grand staircases and chandeliers and hot and cold running champagne. It ain't like that at all. He was in a room slightly smaller than the room I'm in right now for 7 years, with no access to sunlight, decent food, and of course, the last several years, because of the Moreno government, he was spied upon mercilessly, including all the conversations he had with his lawyers. My dear friends, Margaret Kunstler and Deborah Hebrick, had all of their computers and phones taken from them, and everything on them was copied. Now, that's attorney-client privilege documents, but apparently that stuff is like the Geneva Convention, passé.
Well, listen, it's great that we got him out, or you got him out, and it shows that activism does pay. That's kind of the theme of this hour. And I have with me to my right here Tatanka Bricca.
Before you bring up my good buddy Tatanka, I'd like to poorly pat myself on the back. On August 3rd, Ben Cohen, who funded Assange defense, is working with a group called Up in Arms. And I and 10 video team went to Disneyland and we placed a doll in It's a Small World. I still got that damn song in my head from that long ago, but we placed a doll that said, "Remember Hiroshima." It has already had millions of views on TikTok, Fox News, CNN covered it. And I was prepared to be thrown in jail and banned from Disneyland for life, but I literally took my Pendleton off, my hat off, and slowly moseyed my way out of the park, and nothing happened to me.
I was on that ride with my kids like 20 years ago. It's a small world. It does drive you crazy.
Yes, I went to Disneyland many times. I will admit on nationwide radio, on mind-altering drugs many times, and I never believed in acid flashbacks until I was preparing to place that doll, and I got the strangest feeling like, ooh, something strange is going to happen.
Put the link in the chat, will you, so that we can all see it. And
you know, all I've got is some pictures. They're going to send me the video links, and the next week I'll do it, but I'll post those 2 photos right now.
Right. And I got Tatanka Bricko with me here in the house. You know, we are also celebrating that Leonard Peltier is free. Can you speak into that?
No.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. Tatanka is visiting. There we go. So Leonard Peltier is still out and about, and we haven't heard much from him, but I'm sure he's going to start to make himself a little more available.
Well, August is ceremony month in Indian country, so a lot of sun dancing, a lot of other ceremonies. I will let people know that on October 24th in Santa Cruz, there's going to be an event with Danny Sheehan, Dolores Huerta, and Chase Iron Eyes on Friday, August 24th. So just put that on your calendar. Those of you who can be in Northern California.
That's next Sunday.
No. October, I'm sorry.
Oh, October.
Not August, I'm sorry. October 24th. So that's going to be probably have an ice demonstration in the afternoon. And then Pirangi, an amazing performer, will be performing. And Dolores, you know, when people organize events for her, she says, as long as I can dance, you know, and she's often, usually the last person off the dance floor at the age of 95. But 3 visionaries, Danny Sheehan, Dolores Huerta, and Chase Iron Eyes, the leader of the movement in South and North Dakota.
Great. All right. And thank you for being in my house. And I'm going to turn it there we go. So, all right, Vinny, thank you. It's always great to celebrate our victories. I mean, just think of where we were a year ago with both these guys. Their fates were uncertain, and now they're out. People get out, you know, and soon Trump will leave. And I have an astonishing fact that all of you have to sit down to think about. You ready for this? Donald Trump has only been in office for 8 months. The universal response is it feels like 8 years, or maybe 80. So we'll see what goes on here. But Vinny, thank you for that so much. I want to say hi to John Steiner, who's with us, and also Camilla Reese has been with us. Great to see you both. And we still have 84 people with us. I do want to mention a project, especially Tatanka here, that Dave Saltman is on. Dave, is Sam with us, your son? I failed to properly notify. We are going to move ahead with a project that's going to be part of the. No, he's not there. It's called Indigenous Originalism, and I've mentioned it before. And we, in the coming months or year or two, are going to compile all the constitutions of the original indigenous tribes and nations, so that we used to have this horrible Supreme Court. I hesitate to say Justice Antonin Scalia, who would make these horrible decisions and would claim that he was channeling the original thoughts of the founders at the Philadelphia Constitutional Convention in 1787. But he never mentioned the fact that before that Constitutional Convention, there were 500 tribes, all of them with their own legal system. And no one has ever really compiled, that I know of, I might be wrong, a document of the indigenous originalism. What were the laws? And they all had laws. I mean, this was not a barren, barbarian wilderness here. We had, very civilized nations in North America, and they all had legal codes. And so I'm conspiring with Dave's son Sam, who's a lawyer, and we'll have him on next week. We're trying to get to Oren Lyons. Greg Palast has opened the doors to the Osage. If any of you listening in have connections or
Thanks a lot,
ideas or institute that we can consult to get to the original indigenous constitutions, that's a great map, Steve. Thank you for that. We know that the Iroquois, the 5 tribes of the Haudenosaunee across upstate New York, had a very advanced, sophisticated, probably the most sophisticated and advanced democracy in the world at the time, and still would qualify. And so we want to, and both George Washington and Ben Franklin ascribed the structure of the American U.S. federal government to the Haudenosaunee. So we want to compile all that. We'll have a deeper discussion next week. Anybody who's interested in that and has specific knowledge, please email me, solartopia@gmail.com, and we'll move that ahead. And we're hoping to get to Oren Lyons and some other key elders in all this in the coming weeks and months, and we will certainly make it a part of the GREEP situation. So thank you for that. All right, we're past the top of the hour. The big news in the world is going on as we speak. Zelensky, it is quite amazing, Dave Saltman. You were at the meeting of Reagan and Gorbachev. Personally, you were there.
When I was, I covered several presidential summits, actually. Reagan and Gorbachev, if I remember correctly, I think it was 1985. And I think this was Reagan's first summit meeting with, because the Russian, the Russian government had just changed dramatically, and Gorbachev had suddenly become, I forgot what his title is, chairman or prime minister or general secretary, or I don't know. I never can remember those Russian.
He was the leader after Stalin.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a few in between, but
after Yeltsin, and remember all this time.
No, he was before Yeltsin.
Well, I was just going to say all this time, before Yeltsin. Yeltsin was cultivating this guy named Putin, who had been sent to East Germany to sort of get out of the limelight for a while, and basically spent his time cleansing the Stasi records. He spent 5 years as the head of the Stasis, Putin. A little known fact about it.
The Stasis were the horrible secret police in East Germany.
That's right.
They were the Gestapo / whatever in East Germany under the communists.
So it was very difficult to get any kind of real information out of Russia at this time. CBS News in those days had a very sophisticated Moscow bureau. The Moscow bureau chief and senior consultant on all things Russian was a good friend of mine, Jonathan Sanders, who had previously been the director of the, I think it's called the Hoover Institute for Russian Affairs at Columbia University, not the same Hoover Institute.
Is that the institute where all the guys trying to have affairs with Soviet women, or
they try if they really, they try their best. Let's put it that way. But Jonathan really he had gone to school in Russia, and he was really, and I think to this day, he's my go-to guy on anything Russian.
Well, we should have him on next week to try and sort through what's going on right now.
He'd be a very good guest. Well, here's the thing I found very interesting. Because it was the first meeting between Reagan and any foreign leader, if I remember rightly, they really spent a lot of time getting acquainted. And this was the new Russia. They supposedly weren't all that communist anymore, and a lot of the meeting was closed to the press and to everybody. They didn't issue statements. They basically got to know each other. And this seemed like a really good idea at the time. So the staff, namely us, and I'm talking about all the, of course, all the top line CBS News correspondents were there. Bill Moyers leading the thing, and I was basically their foreign news producer. That was my remit mostly during most of my career at CBS. So we're waiting around, and so we're interviewing people like the head of the East-West Institute, which is the Russian think tank that is part of the KGB, we believe, and is really responsible for developing policy towards the U.S. So we spent a lot. I forgot the guy's name now. It's a long time ago, but so this guy's in our. We've taken over an entire hotel in Geneva. This guy is in our office space, and we spent hours talking to him there. And meanwhile, Gorbachev and Reagan are out gallivanting around somewhere. We don't even really know where they are. Nobody does. And so this guy leaves the building, goes to have dinner, and we're sitting around thinking like, wow, what was he trying to tell us? And suddenly we notice that he left his briefcase on the desk. And we're thinking, oh my God, I've gone to heaven. This is journalistic heaven. And so then commences this massive debate among all the different factions of CBS News, and there were a lot of factions, believe me, as to whether or not and to what degree we should open the briefcase and see what's inside, photograph what's inside, burn what's inside, or any of 25 other possible outcomes. And Bill Moyers, who, if you remember, I don't know if you remember Bill that well, but before he became, he was the only one in the team who had actually worked in the White House and who knew. He had been Lyndon Johnson's press secretary, and he was good at it. And he was a very great reporter, really good correspondent. I could tell you a lot of. In fact, when we talk about if we ever going to talk about the starvation issue in Gaza, he had some interesting ideas that were related to that. That's a separate conversation. Anyway, Bill took the position that we should not touch the briefcase and we should present it back to the guy unopened. And that this would be a declaration not only of U.S. policy, or at least CBS policy, but a measure of the quality of being of the American people. A very Bill Moyers spiritualized idea, that really held water also. And of course, all of the other guys, Charles Collingwood, who was a CBS News chief foreign correspondent, still by title, and I forgot who else was there. All the heavyweights were there, though. Hughes, Rudd, you name it, they were there. They all wanted to, let's very careful, get a locksmith to do it so it can't be detected. Steam open the envelopes. It was really, you could write a book on the psychology of everybody just based on what they wanted to do. Anyway,
well, what did you want to do?
Oh, of course, I wanted to open it up, read everything, Xerox everything, and put it all on the front. First do the evening news with Walter Cronkite leading with it, and then on the front page of the New York Times the next day. That's always been my instinct. 100% public. Completely wrong. Once again, completely wrong. And Moyers prevailed, and we presented the thing back to the guy, and Moyers gave him his personal assurance that we haven't touched it. And I can't say that changed the course of history, because we don't know what was in there. We don't know if what was in there was the keys to the kingdom, all the secret,
I know what was in there. The Epstein files.
I was going to say, it could be the Epstein files, or it could be the dis-Epstein files.
Right.
The disinformation version.
Well, but he could also have, and in the James Bond world, he could have deliberately left this thing full of fake documents.
Exactly.
You would have them published as if they were real.
Exactly the point. That's right. Exactly the point. Right. So I'm reading. So you and I are talking yesterday about Ukraine, and you mentioned this Lev Parnas art. Is Lev coming on today?
No, next week.
So I can tell about this. You mentioned this article by Lev Parnas, who had been part of the KGB gang back in the day, and who had now turned and was anti-Putin. And Lev Parnas was suspecting that the guy that we thought was Putin at this summit meeting yesterday was actually a double.
Right.
It wasn't Putin at all. It was
actually, I know who it was. It was Mel Brooks.
It did look a little bit like Mel Brooks.
Right.
After you told me that, I read Lev Parnas's article, and I started looking at 50 years of Putin footage just to see, because if you notice, there were a couple of very characteristic moves in there. First of all, the guy did a Woody Allen type of thing where he went like, and I can't see Putin ever doing that, Right. He was like, I don't know, ask me.
That means if they hired a double, he was Jewish.
That's what exactly what I thought. I said that's
so it was Mel Brooks.
That's too Jewish of a move for Putin to do. And then the other thing was, I don't know, you probably know this. Putin really is a martial artist. He practices jujitsu, or the Russians they call sambo. It's a version of jujitsu, and I've seen him do it. And I gave a lot. I was watching a lot of his practice tapes, because I practice martial arts, and I teach it, so I know what the moves are like, And Putin has a very distinctive walk where he walks, he cants from one side to the other. And this guy, who was walking next to Donald Trump, who has more of a front-loaded walk than a side-loaded walk, he's walking next to Trump, and I noticed that he's hitching out his left side more than his right. He's a little off. He's more like this, herky-jerky. And I'm thinking, that is not the walk of a kung fu master. That is not the walk of a kung fu master. And so I'm thinking, like, that's weird, but I can't, maybe he hurt himself, maybe he didn't sleep very well. I don't know. But then I hear, and this is the last thing, I hear that after he left, the American team that was in charge of reporting back to the White House, assembling the real documents and they call the after action reports. They left an 8-page stack of paper in the copying machine at the hotel, just for somebody like a bellboy found it and was like, "Hey, did somebody leak this stuff?" Top secret material. And I thought, oh my God, it's the goddamn briefcase.
Yeah, there you go. Well, here's a question. If Putin was walking next to Trump, and Putin is a martial artist, could he have, in fact, leaned over, grabbed Trump, and flipped him?
Without a doubt.
Even though Trump weighs 400 pounds?
Without a doubt.
Unbelievable. So what's your thing? Do you think that it was a body double, that it wasn't Putin?
I do know this. I know that Field Marshal Montgomery had a double in World War II.
That's right.
And it was decisive in the course of the war, because they allowed the Germans to spot him in the wrong place in France, and made the Germans think that the attack was not going to come from Normandy. So
Right.
it was crucial to the war. So doubles have been around for a long time.
Well,
I also,
Hitler had at least two doubles.
Hitler had two doubles. When I was, I think I was a Nazi hunter for a while.
Yeah, you hunted
When I was
Mengele.
in charge, I was in charge of the hunt for Mengele. Again, leading the CBS News team. I spent months in Brazil, on that story. And in the course of it, I got to know every shyster selling fake Nazi memorabilia in the world. And I got a picture of a guy. If you remember the Mengele story, his face was over every newspaper and every TV channel in the world for several months. It was like the story. And it was this face from the passport photo. It was very, very distinctive. And so I'm in Sao Paulo, and this guy is now allegedly dead with the face. And I got a picture that was taken that morning in Paraguay of that guy. He's sitting in a cafe. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, that's the guy. And so, I didn't know how to resolve it. I didn't have any way to resolve it. But I'm thinking like, wow, I'm riding on the plane home with the guy. There's a guy named Neil Scher at the Justice Department who was in charge of the American Nazi hunt. And let's see.
Well,
you see that second picture from the top? That was one of them that was everywhere.
What would be the implications if it actually wasn't Putin?
Yeah, well, let me just finish on this. So I'm riding home with Neil Scher on the plane going home, and we're talking about all this stuff. And I said, Neil, are you? And I had the same. I had interviewed the Mossad guy, asking the same questions. I said to the Mossad guy, "What do you think?" And he said, "We have not closed the books on this yet." And then I asked Neil Scher. I said, "Neil, I got this picture yesterday. They sent it to me." I said, "What is it? Who is this guy?" And he looked and I said, "Oh yeah, it's a double." And I said, "There's a double?" And he said, "There are two doubles."
Well, let's jump ahead a little bit. I'd love to know why they would send a double. I mean, did Putin just not want to fly? But here's the question, and then there's a second question, okay? Because I asked Lev Parnas this morning. I talked to him on the phone, and I said, "Is Donald Trump groveling to Putin because Putin has two world-shattering pieces of blackmail on Trump? Number one is, of course, Epstein and the girls. Yeah, we know that Epstein knew and had a relationship with Putin. That's been well established. And there would only be two pieces of business. Number one would be the girls, the underage females that everybody in the world knows were abused by Donald Trump. I mean, I don't know what there is to find in the Epstein files that hasn't already been made public, at least in spirit. Donald Trump, oh God, look at that. Is that now? That's in place now? That's not like 40 years ago?
Oh, that looks current, yeah.
Yeah, that looks current. So nobody doubts that Donald Trump partook of what Jeffrey Epstein was offering in terms of young girls. And so the Epstein files, I mean, come on. There's nothing in there that's going to be a surprise to anybody.
I agree with you on that.
And there are 27, count them, 27 women who have come forward officially in public to accuse Trump of sexual imposition, dating back to the time that one of them was 14.
You know what I think Putin's reaction to that would be? Only 27?
Exactly. So the question then is he blackmailing Trump with something like that? The second thing that's just starting to come out, and this is absolutely essential to the rise of Donald Trump. And I got this from a really, really great writer. You might know him, David K. Johnston.
I do know him.
Yeah, so he's in upstate New York.
He knows more about Donald Trump than anybody.
Yes, he is the expert on Donald Trump, dating back to, I think he was there when Donald was born, actually.
He was a
But
New York Times reporter. He won the Pulitzer Prize.
oh, did he? Yeah. Well, I heard him, and Myla probably did too, and Nancy Naparco. We heard him speak at Jan and Jerry's house in Santa Monica. And he said, and it's always stuck with me, and I always wondered when it was going to be fully documented. He said that when Donald Trump was bankrupt 4 or 6 or 40 times in the 80s, he
Right.
still had the real estate. He had no money, but he had the real estate from his father. And that's when the Soviet Union was falling, and all these mobsters were getting out of the gulag, and they were taking over the territory, and they had, excuse me, billions of rubles that they wanted to launder into the American system.
That's right.
So who do you do that with? A corrupt,
Somebody who sells real estate.
right? A corrupt, bankrupt New Yorker with tons of real estate, but no money.
I think that's absolutely correct. And I think
And
there's
so
no
now,
proof for that.
Myla sent me something yesterday. Apparently, they have documented more than 4,000 financial transactions that were conducted by, there he is, David Kay. We're gonna see if we can get him on.
Yeah, he's good.
He's good. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
But so it's been documented wherever it is that Jeffrey Epstein managed more than 4,000 financial transactions between Trump and Russians. And so Johnston said that when the Soviet Union was falling, these guys laundered their money through Trump's real estate.
Yeah,
That's how Trump got out of bankruptcy.
I think that's right.
That has got to be totally documented in Putin's KGB files.
I'm sure you're right.
And so, it's a one thing to have done all these women. I think everybody understands that's a real. The other one is, where did Donald Trump come from? He comes from Russian rubles, from Russia, and that's where he and Jeffrey Epstein had their falling out, because as you remember, Trump and Epstein were really, really close. This says a lot about Trump too, by the way. They're really close friends, or so Jeffrey Epstein thought. So Jeffrey Epstein wants to buy a property in South Florida, and he puts in a bid for $36 million on a mansion. And he takes his buddy over, Donald Trump, his good friend, to scope out the property. And as friends will, Epstein wanted bits of advice. He apparently wanted to move the pool or something like that. And the next thing you know, this is just amazing. These guys were friends for 15 years. The next thing you know, Trump buys the property out from under Jeffrey Epstein. He winds up paying $40 million, and Epstein apparently was livid. And that was what really broke up their friendship. Nothing to do with women. It was, Trump couldn't resist stabbing his friend in the back. But
that Trump went on to sell that property to a Russian oligarch for $100 million.
Yes.
That's the beginning of his laundering.
Yes.
I totally believe.
But apparently leading up to that, or maybe through it, I don't know, Epstein handled the transactions because that was Epstein's magic.
But
he was really good at international money and math.
Well, okay, so here's what you're missing, or you're probably not missing it, but here's what happened the next day. That transaction was taken over by the Bank of Cyprus, not Jeffrey Epstein. And the Bank of Cyprus at the time, the vice president in charge of international transactions was the one and only Wilbur Ross.
Oh, God. Well, you got to tell us who Wilbur Ross was.
That sews up the whole thing.
Well, he became Secretary of Agriculture?
Secretary of the Treasury.
Treasury. Oh, my God. So, it went right to the top. So Putin has to have all the documentation of Trump's money laundering.
So why would he even waste his time going to visit that imbecile in
Yeah.
Alaska when he can send one of his Mel Brooks guys, and all that guy has to do is sit there and look cute for how long was he there? Like 45 minutes, you know?
Really? Well, they had baked Alaska. So my theory was, oh, there he is. There's Wilbur Ross.
Secretary of Commerce. I missed
yeah.
that. Got that wrong.
And he was a Democrat, according to this. Oh my God.
I don't think he was ever really a Democrat.
Well, anyway, yeah. Well, are any of these guys really Democrats? So the point is that if we're talking about blackmail here, if Putin had Trump groveling because of A, documents with the girls, and B, documents with the money laundering, that would make sense, right?
Yeah.
But I ran that by Lev Parnas, and he doesn't believe it. He has a different theory, which I'll tell you in a minute. Myla, you wanted to ask a question? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, and I wanted to refer back to what you were talking about earlier. Oregon Senator Ron Wyden.
Right.
That's what you were talking about. He is trying to get an investigation going of the Treasury Department's Epstein files, which detail 4,725 wire transfers. He read this into the congressional record, and I put the link to the page in the congressional record in the chat here on this Zoom. He says, he continues, Wyden does, let me repeat that 4,725 wire transfers adding up to nearly 1.1 billion flowing in and out of just one of Mr. Epstein's bank accounts. If you ask me, and that's Ron Wyden speaking, that is more than 4,000 potential lines of investigation right there. Hundreds of millions more flowed through other accounts. That is even a lot more to investigate. And as I said, Ron Wyden's been pushing for this investigation, not just of the files that the FBI has, but more importantly, the information that's held by the Treasury Department.
And that's how Trump got out of bankruptcy. He took these guys' rubles and turned them into real estate.
That's right.
And David K. Johnston, we heard that from him 20 years ago. Well, not 20, it was 10 years ago at Jan and Jerry's house. And that's why Putin owns Trump, because Putin took over the Soviet Union, or the former Soviet Union, Russia, by grabbing all the oligarchs, by the bank account. And I guarantee you, as a KGB guy, as every penny accounted for that Donald Trump laundered for the Russians.
And that explains why the Mel Brooks character didn't have to agree to anything or propose anything. And that explains my theory as to why they left the 8 pages in the printer machine was, look, these are our phone numbers. If you guys want to talk about it, you can call us at home is okay.
Oh my God. It's mind-boggling. But I will say this. Lev Parnas this morning told me that that's not what happened in Alaska. And the trade that they're talking about, that Putin wants to make with Zelensky, is for all the land in Ukraine that has the minerals under it.
Yeah, it's no trade. He wants the rest of it.
It's a takeover.
He wants the rest of it. The Donbass, what he didn't have yet.
Right. But that's where all the mineral wealth is in Ukraine. And forget the rest of the stuff. He doesn't really care about nationalism or the greater Russia. All he wants is the minerals. Is that accurate? What do you think?
Well, I think it's not only the minerals, but if you look at the map, it's attached to the Crimea, which he already took. And it gives him half of the shoreline of the Black Sea, which for 1,000 years has been Russia's geopolitical desire, a warm water port. So, yeah.
Go ahead. And then we'll go to Donald. But
in 2015, there were four entities that came together to basically purchase the Russian National Oil and Gas Corporation. One of the entities led to Donald Trump's major financier. And I know an attorney who was investigating that. And when it started to come out, it just went underground. It never happened. But the idea was that it held more oil reserves than everything else in the world combined. It was the Arctic Circle part controlled by the former Soviet Union. And this would be part of that would be added to it. And that it would make Donald Trump basically the wealthiest individual on the planet. The problem would be that they would really not be able to get to it in a financially lucrative way until all the ice was melted off, which then explains the whole anti-global warming. And Rex Tillerson, until Tillerson, saw Trump as the idiot or the moron. I can't remember what he called him, either idiot or moron. He was one of the first people.
Both.
But that goes way back, and that could still be in play. Trump could be wanting that share of it.
Well, I have never heard the idea that the fossil nuclear guys want to warm the planet to melt the ice to get at the fossil fuels in the Arctic.
They had ads at the time. I saw them on the TV. They had ads about how wonderful it would be to just sail across the North Pole without any ice.
Well, that's happening. That's definitely happening now. Unbelievable. Donald Smith, you wanted to jump in? We still have 74 people. This is really fascinating, and this is all and it's going on right now. I mean, I absolutely love the fact that the European guys flew here. That is so cool. I mean, I'm sure they all got miles, but nonetheless, Donald Smith, and then we'll jump back in here with Dave Solomon. This is really, really interesting. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay. So I think I heard Sluggo repeat, and others have said that the 4,725 transactions between Epstein and Trump, I don't believe they all were with Trump. And in fact, Yahoo has a fact check about that, and it's according to this fact check, they're not all involving Trump. So on social media, I saw that meme shared where somebody said 4,000 plus transactions between Epstein and Trump. Apparently it's false. So just 4,725 transactions in general. So I just wanted to clarify that.
No, very good point, Donald. Thank you for that. Of course, how many of them had to be with Trump?
Wyden, just to clear up this, Wyden's quote does not say that they were transactions with Trump. It just says they were Epstein's transactions, period. So I think the original meme is incorrect.
Yeah, that was. I saw that meme on Facebook and I questioned it. Yeah.
Well, maybe it was 200 with Trump. I mean, how many does it need to be?
I would bet most of them are with Russians, not with Trump.
Yes. But Epstein probably, well, that's where the laundering is done.
Exactly.
Epstein's involved, and he could funnel through the limited. He could have, hired a couple of Victoria's Secret models to wear gold bands or whatever.
It's the perfect place to launder Russian money. Makes perfect sense through the limited and through real estate. I mean, these guys are not too stupid,
Well, there was one instance where a Russian bought 5 apartments in Trump Tower,
right,
in one fell swoop.
Right.
And Trump overcharged the hell out of him, and that was the point. He wanted to be overcharged.
For laundering money, you want to be overcharged, right?
Or like the mansion in I think it was Palm Beach. Epstein was going to pay $36 million.
Right.
Trump paid 40, and then he sold it for 100.
He sold it for 100, and by the way, the guy never occupied that building even for one night. He never took possession.
So I wonder what Trump got. I wonder what they were expecting in return from Trump. Why? He must have gotten something.
The money, they got it already. Just by doing the transaction, they made that money disappear and appear to be legal.
It was better than the drug trade.
Okay,
I mean,
well, so
you
Trump
know,
got the money. I mean, if you earn money, you don't just want to give it to someone. You want to somehow get it back. So
Trump got out of bankruptcy with the money, and the Russians got out of criminal court by making their illegally obtained money look legal.
okay, I thought that in addition to making it look legal, I mean that is one motivation, but I would have thought that they wanted to get it back in some form by some other means eventually.
Well, they have plenty of other means too, their own evil businesses. But this is how you launder money.
Trump's code name in Russia apparently was Pablo Escobar. That's a joke. Anyway, but Lev also mentioned the Nord Stream pipeline, and this part I couldn't figure out. Had to do with moving the oil from Russia without involving Ukraine or getting around Ukraine, and I'm not clear at that. But of course, this explains, and you can look up the piece again that I put up today with Steve at freepress.org. This is all, in one sense, the largest sense, a holding action by the fossil nuclear oligarchs against renewables. And this is why Trump hates renewable energy so much, because it's the competition.
Let me suggest one other thing, and I'd love to know your opinion on this. What I'm going to say, there was a wonderful blog that ran for a while called "Things Will Be Worse Tomorrow."
Oh yeah, that was what's her name? She was great.
Julie something.
Julie something. Yeah.
What I'm getting at is this. I'm sure you know this. There's just been a huge oil discovery off the coast of Guyana. Everybody and their dog is moving to Guyana and buying up property, and Exxon is the major driller there by a long shot. So I think what you've got now is and this is all tropical. There's no question. The problem with Russian oil, although it's plentiful, as you know, it's hard to get to. You got to drill through a lot of ice. Guyana, you don't have that problem. This stuff is cheap and it's massive. So I think that, and I see this as being the actual event. You tell me if I'm wrong. That is destroying the anti-nuclear movement, and wind and solar. Nobody gives a shit. These guys want to cash in their chips before they go wind.
Right. Well, the question then really becomes China, because China, as we all know now, completely dominating solar panels, completely dominating wind, completely dominating batteries, right? I mean, we're not even on the map anymore in the United States in the global market. And now about to totally take over the global auto industry, because you have this thing in China, the BYD,
right?
Build your dream.
Yeah.
A car in quality and durability on a par with the Toyota Corolla,
And
which
all
is now the mainstay.
All electric.
But it's not only is it electric, but you can charge the BYD for more than 300 miles in 5 minutes. I mean, they've mastered the technology. It's built around batteries. So the question then, now the Chinese are still building nuclear. And I would attribute that, as a total outsider, and it's a complete guess, but that somewhere in the Chinese bureaucracy, there's somebody who has power to promote nuclear. Like this little holdover, like the Japanese guys on the islands that didn't know the war ended. And China's big enough to sustain still building nukes.
For fissile.
Yeah, and for weapons. But the bottom line is that China now totally dominates the renewable global market, And everywhere except the United States, where you can't buy a BYD in the United States, but everywhere else in the world, people are going to buy only BYDs. It's far superior to Tesla, and no one else is in the game in terms. Well, there are a couple other Chinese companies actually, but there are a few. The European companies, car companies, that are building electric cars are only building super high end. You know, they're building the luxury cars. The Chinese are building the Volkswagens for everybody. And we're done. I mean, economically, these are the largest growth industries in the world. So, and Trump is the fossil guy, the fossil nuclear guy. Although, to me, I think nuclear basically is just a distraction. The nuclear industry itself is not the main point of the business. The industry is designed to distract from renewables. The industry itself is not the main player here. There are zero large nuclear reactors under construction in the United States. They're talking about these small reactors. Anybody with any business sense looking at the model for small reactors knows it's going nowhere. It's really not going anywhere. It's just garbage designed to defuse the push to renewables while they continue to sell their main product, which is coal, oil, and gas, as far as I can see. But here you go. BYD, NIO, and XPeng. Those are and you can't buy them in the United States, but you can buy them in Mexico. You can buy them in Brazil. You can buy them in Congo. I mean, you know, they're for sale everywhere else in the world. Nobody's going to buy a Chevy or a Ford. I mean, they're done. We're done. We're bankrupt in this country in terms of energy and techno future, right? I mean that. So I don't understand where the pipeline fits in with Ukraine, but clearly they don't care, and I don't think Putin. You know, he's a nationalist and blah blah blah. It's a cover. He just wants the minerals, right? What do you think, David?
I'm sure he does want the minerals. You know, like I say, mining and doing anything like that in Russia because of the weather is very difficult and very expensive. It's not the same as drilling for, you know, digging a uranium mine in Africa or Colorado or somewhere like that, you know. So I don't know. I'm not an expert on mining, although I do remember Mark Twain's when he was describing a mine, he defined a mine. He said a mine is a hole in the ground with a liar at the top.
And that's not the instrument, Lyre. Okay, does anybody else want to jump in on this? This has been really fascinating. I'm hoping to have either David K. Johnston or Lev Parnas or Lucian Truscott next week to go deeper into Ukraine. But I don't, in my scant 80 years, I don't, and as a historian, this is truly astounding. I do not remember ever having a head of state coming to the United States to meet the president, suddenly prompting all the leaders of Europe to hop on planes to chaperone the event. I mean, that's basically what happened here.
Yeah.
You know, France, England, all the major countries of Europe and NATO sent their top guys. These weren't their secretaries of state. These are Macron came, Sturmer came, the head of NATO came. They all came here because they didn't want Zelensky to have to sit in the room alone with this lunatic in the White House. That's just completely unprecedented.
Let me propose this. The fact that Lev Parnas, let's say that he's right, and the fact that he knew that this was a double. Who didn't? All those guys must have known. And they all came to rub Putin's nose in it. We know that you know, and you know that we know you know.
Well, you said who didn't. I thought you were going to say Houdini.
I usually am saying Houdini, but not this time.
Well, Houdini has gotten new life because of what's her name, the singer, the
Yeah,
Albanian singer,
there's
uh,
several Houdini songs. It's amazing.
Dua Lipa. Dua Lipa wrote that song about with Houdini, and it just pops out from nowhere like Houdini, I
It's
guess.
a huge smash. There's a computer program. The most effective computer worm is called Houdini.
Oh, there you go. Well, listen, everybody, there's still 70 of us here. This has been truly astounding. I mean, you couldn't invent what happened today. The idea that the leaders of Europe would jump on airplanes to come to be with Zelensky in the White House and Trump, they're all deciding, are they going to jump in militarily? How afraid of Putin are they? You're looking here. Basically, you're talking about the second Sudetenland, where Hitler called everybody's bluff, got hold of this territory, and then proceeded to go to war anyway. Right? I don't think any of the leaders in Europe believe that, given the chance, Putin would not attack them. And and Trump, right off the top of his head, is saying, Zelensky, you can't join NATO, which is what Putin is not Putin's number one demand. You don't join NATO, and you give me the minerals, and we're done until I decide to attack you again. So, may you live in interesting times. I do want to add, we still have 69 people. We're going to end at 4. That's in 13 minutes, and toke up early. But I do want to mention that the Democrats in Texas threw in the towel today. And they have decided to go back, and they're going to let Trump redistrict Texas. And I will say that definitely then California is going to do that. Um, you know, um, Gavin Newsom, who clearly wants to run for president, is going to stake his whatever on redistricting now. The only good thing about the redistricting in California is that it will end in 2030, and they will redistrict in 2030 based on the old plan, which is that's how redistricting should be done, is the way it's being done in California. But I can support now, matching Texas if it reverts to the previous plan in 2030. And Newsom will not be governor in 2030. So we'll see what happens. Maybe, Myla, you and I, having met Katie Porter, will persuade her to shut Diablo and move ahead with that. Myla, you want to say something, please?
Well, as you were saying, Harvey, yesterday you and I went to a really extraordinary event, the annual picnic of the Santa Monica Democratic Club, and it was a really successful event. I'd say that there were at least a couple of hundred people who came, a lot of candidates, and a lot of people who are steeped in California politics and national politics. I had a really interesting conversation with the right-hand man to our California state, or my California state senator, Ben Allen. He's a senator in the California legislature, and his right-hand guy, Sam Liu, was telling me that he had an opportunity to take a look at the proposed maps to pick up as many as 5 congressional, for the Democrats to pick up as many as 5 congressional seats in the state of California. And it's probably kind of not, it would be extremely optimistic to say that the Democrats would actually pick up 5. But what they did was they talked to the Democratic delegation from the state of California, they being the people who are interested in the redistricting. And the people who were the congressional Dems who were in particularly safe districts all agreed that they would be willing to shave their margin in order to pick up additional seats. And I talked to someone who was in touch with, I believe, your congressperson, Laura Friedman, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I learned that Laura, somebody who's speaking? I'm sorry, I just heard someone else. At
Right.
any rate, apparently Laura said that she's in a particularly safe district, and that that here. Oh, that's fine, a colleague.
Go ahead.
At any rate, sorry, I was distracted by that other voice. But at any rate, what the people in the really safe districts are doing and saying is that they're willing to not have as safe a district as they had previously, and it looks like there's a good chance that California can in fact add a few Democratic seats, and I'm kind of surprised by that because Harvey or Sluggo, you and I have been recently talking about how David Daley, the author of Rat, and I don't know if I can say the word.
RATF CKED.
that he hasn't been nearly as sanguine as a lot of Democratic people who have been kind of really doing a lot of tough talking and saying that if they're going to fight with guns at the gunfight, we're going to have to fight with guns too. He wasn't feeling particularly sanguine about the prospects of Democrats actually being able to pick up as many congressional seats as they're saying that they're able to pick up.
Well, there's a note here in the chat, Myla, that somebody says that DeSantis is, now doing it to Florida. They'll do it in Illinois for the Democrats and Missouri for the Republicans, and it's going to get uglier and uglier. But we'll see here. This is, again, I got to emphasize the extant fact is dominating our lives here is that Donald Trump has only been president for 8 months. And everybody that I say to says it feels like 8 years. And, maybe it is, maybe next month he's actually turned out because it is 8 years. We're going to see what happens. But this idea that the leaders of Europe would fly here to be with Zelensky, it's astounding, unheard of in all of American history. Nothing like that. So the question I've been thinking about, well, where are these European guys going to meet after they're done with Trump? Obviously, they and Zelensky. I mean, are they going to go to IHOP? I mean, what do you think? But they're going to have to. They're going to actually have their own summit, and the Europeans are going to decide whether they're going to go to war in Ukraine with Putin. That's the big thing, and Trump will not be at that meeting. But Trump's complete collapse to Putin. I know Lev knows a lot more than I do, and clearly the minerals in Ukraine and something to do with moving the oil, which I couldn't quite follow. That's all got to be a part of it, right? But Putin has to own Trump, and it's got to be money laundering and the girls. I don't know what else you need. What else do you need? Steve Caruso, go ahead.
Yeah, the last thing I heard before the show was a talk about security guarantees for Ukraine, and Trump was like on board, but it's mainly going to be Europe and all that. And I don't know if you want to talk about next week yet, but then also Vina Foley has an event on August 24th with Joe Mangano, who's been on this show. I put the flyer again in the chat.
Okay, please, yeah.
Vina, you want to get on and talk about it? Let me know.
Well, it's a week from yesterday. So, Vina, very quickly, and then we're almost out of time. This has been amazing. We still have 66 people with us. Dave Solomon, thank you so much. And everybody from the first hour, Diane Cameron, Vinny, Tatanka here in my house, Mayor Heidi and Mimi, our poet. It's been another amazing gathering. We really appreciate it. Vina, you want to tell us about your event, and then I think we'll hop on out.
Yes, we're going to have a big event this Sunday at the Holiday Inn in Portsmouth, Ohio. We have a lot of experts talking. We have a lot of victims talking. And we should be getting a lot of media coverage. And I do have Dr. Ketter here at the house right now. He just went out and jumped in the pool. But
Which we're about to do.
Yeah. But if you guys would ever like to have him on your show, he's the one that's doing all the soil samples here and in New Mexico, on different sites. So he's been taking all kind of samples and finding all this stuff.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Vina. Thank you also, Karl Grossman, for all your great stuff. And Vina, when you get to the Holiday Inn in Portsmouth, Ohio, don't be surprised if you see the Prime Minister from France and Great Britain and the head of NATO. I mean, they're gonna have to meet somewhere. Why not
I've invited them all.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, listen, everybody. Anybody else want to jump in? Anybody else got anything to say? This is an
You want to
amazing.
talk about next week at all? Give people a heads up.
Yes, go
what
ahead,
we're
Steve.
making?
Tell us about next week, what we got going.
Well, we're looking at having John Boniface, who's head of Free Speech for People. They were at the convention with John Brakey, who eventually got kicked out. I hope we don't go into that too much depth because we got a lot going on the planet besides these small things that happen. But anyway, it was DEF CON at this event where they had the voting village there where they hacked voting machines as a study, not as something to undermine, as white hats, not black hats. So
Okay.
also, Boniface is working hand in hand with Jessica Denson and pushed with her the 14.3 concept. And if you want to vote, go to impeachtrumpagain.org, sign the petition. They took almost 1 million signatures to Congress and passed them on. And you can still, I'm sure the petition is still open to sign. If we can get Jessica Denson on next week, that would be great.
All right.
There's a lot going on in the background in terms of the machine count and the actual ballots and the numbers and how they're all twisted up and not looking normal. So,
well, now and thanks also to Tonka Bricka for being with us. And that now we have both Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin on the record as opposing vote by mail. So what higher and joint endorsement could you possibly get? So yes, we'll have Boniface and Brakey on next week, hopefully as well. Go ahead.
The paper
Nicole?
ballot thing is a ruse because Trump doesn't like paper ballots. It might Putin. They have paper ballots in Russia, from what I heard today. So,
right.
Nicole,
Well, you know what they use them for after the election.
Why not?
Why not? Okay, Nicole, on. Go ahead, and then I think we're gonna.
Yes,
there's a
poll from the University of Maryland that shows that 2/3 of Americans, or 64%, say they sympathize more with Ukraine compared to 2% who say they sympathize more with Russia. And this support from Ukraine, is an increase from 59% when we conduct the poll in March 2025. And most of the increase came from Republicans whose sympathy went from 45% in March to 55%. And regarding sympathy for Russia, 0%. When the Democrat were polled, 0% were sympathizing with Russia, and 3% Republicans saying they were sympathizing with Russia.
Well, you know how you characterize 0%. It's borscht. It's borscht. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, you guys. Listen, it's 4 o'clock. We had an incredible 2 hours. Still got 59 folks with us. And we will be back next week with more on Ukraine. Dave Solomon, thank you again. Hopefully we'll have Lev or Lucian or David K. Johnson. I really want to talk to you about the Trump background because this Jeffrey Epstein thing really blows the lid of how Trump laundered that money and became what he became. So next week we will talk more about voting rights, and we'll probably have Chuck Panaccio with us next week to talk about fascism. But listen, everybody. Oh, and in 2 weeks we won't meet. 2 weeks is Labor Day. But next week will be a big one. Hopefully, we still have something resembling a democracy by then. Thank you, Myla Reson, and we will see everybody in a couple weeks. Thanks, Steve, again for your great engineering. No nukes, everybody.
Remember, in Rockland County, there's a zero probability that those votes happened the way they appeared to have happened. That's an
Right.
actual statistical fact.
And the
Zero
2024 election,
probabilities.
the 2024 election was not stolen. It was bought and paid for. And Elon Musk has the receipts, as does Vladimir Putin. We'll see you all next week. Take care. And check out my piece at freepress.org on the end of nuclear power. No nukes, everybody.